My friends, welcome once again to this space. We have the visit of someone that has been here before. Welcome, Andy Quildan, Mr. Andy Q.
Thanks for having me back.
Summer, we just experienced Summer Sizzler, which is another iconic event. This time it was at Wolverhampton, which is kind of becoming another home for the big shows of RevPro. We have another show in October, and then we will talk about that. And we had a very good card for this show. We had CPF and GYB winning points for the tag league. We had Shazamos getting revenge on Joshua James. We had the Beast Mortus competing against Robbie X. We also had Ricky Knight Jr. destroying Michael Oku, continuing their story and getting to the road to the anniversary as the top champion of RevPro. We also had Los Tranquilos de Japón, Tetsuya Naito and Bushi making their first match in this new chapter of their career together outside of New Japan. And also we had the return of Mercedes Monet, who wrestled Sapphire Reed in the main event. And then we had also a brief brawl after the match between Monet and Kanji with the CTC. So that's also something interesting going forward with the women's division. So what were your impressions of that show?
I loved that show. I thought it was great. Yeah, it showed us just how, I thought the venue was great, it looked great, it felt great, the atmosphere was great. There was a lot of important beats hitting that show, as the road to this anniversary weekend continues. I would say as well, just to call you up on something, it was Charles Samuels and Jay Joshua, not Joshua James. It can be very confusing because obviously there's Jay Joshua, Joshua James, JJ Gale. There's too many. It's crazy. This would never fly in New York. But
thank you, my bad.
It was like I say. I just feel like as far as the show goes, I thought it was just a real good, solid show. And of course, it had that fantastic Ricky Knight Jr. and Michael Oku emotionally driven, undisputed British Heavyweight Championship match. I think there's when you think about the reception and the just the energy in the room for that match, it's insane. And I know I saw a tweet where someone was like, "Oh, Ricky Knight Jr. has walked out to no reception." Lol, right? Just another example of obviously people getting their digs in. But I was like, what does it like? I didn't see that to be the case at the time anyway. But then, regardless, what was the reception like at the end of the match? What was the reception like during the match? I feel like we should that match was one of the finest pieces of storytelling you're going to see on an independent professional wrestling show. And I think that it was just a fantastic match, which delivered an emotional reaction. And I thought it was fantastic. Of course, Mercedes Monet and Sapphire Reed, great match. Great to see Sapphire Reed in that environment as well. We forget how young Sapphire Reed is, but yeah, she really stepped up in that one. And those moments, you either sink or swim, and she absolutely swam. And I think that she's going to do so much better from that experience. All the uncertainty going into it, she's going to do so much better from that experience as well. And she's going to continue to grow as a performer. And you can expect to see huge things from Sapphire Reed. And like I say, yeah, up and down the card, like I say, everything was with consequence, and that is Revolution Pro Wrestling. Everything matters, every show matters, and it all links together, piece by piece. Even a couple of days later in Sheffield, obviously smaller venue, just as important show. We're really hitting our stride. I think one of the things that could have been levied against us before, when we went to new towns, stuff wouldn't resonate. People didn't know the wrestlers. The crowds didn't feel as invested. And I think that's all changed. And I think that all of that has changed with the mentality of this is all part of the puzzle and every single show is important. And we treated every single show as important before. But I think almost in my mind, I was like, oh, we're going to try and create, the Manchester shows will have different wrestlers, or however you want to play it. So they felt like isolated, perhaps. And I also felt that, just for example, we did some big shows in Manchester, but we had none of the lead up in that area. So like we'd go to Victoria Warehouse, but all the build to Victoria Warehouse happened in London. So the crossover of fans, there wasn't as many. Whereas I feel like, for example, Wolverhampton, you're not a million miles away from Sheffield. You're not a million miles away from Coventry. So there's a lot more crossover of fans now as well. And given that we're doing everything we can anyway, hopefully it shows, to try and make those shows feel more important. Hopefully that brings more fans to those shows. And then of course, then it continues to grow even more.
There was a lot of buzz around this show because, like I mentioned before, it was the first match of Los Tranquilos de Japón in this new chapter outside of New Japan, and also the return of Mercedes Monet, who is a global star. Before, you mentioned that one of your metrics was, the subscription number on demand. So I wanted to know if there was an increased number on demand subscriptions around that period of time.
Yes, obviously we always see peaks when we come to our big shows. We always see peaks in subscriptions. But yes, I did notice that I've said it before. I did notice the second Mercedes won the women's championship and started to be an uptake in the on-demand subscriptions. I think we didn't really have any big shows around that time, so I think you have to really attribute it to that Mercedes effect. But obviously the figure, they go up and down based around where we're at. Going into that weekend, we had another peak in subscribers. I think it's probably more impressive because we lost quite a few subscribers because what happened was when you've got these apps, you have to they routinely send you new terms and conditions that you have to update. They routinely send you new ID verifications you need to go on and do. And I hate paperwork, and I often get these emails and I kind of just ignore them or forget about them. Forget about them is probably a better way of putting it. It says like, will you agree to these new terms and conditions? Yes. You just got to go on, you log on, you press accept. But this one was actually, I had to re-verify my ID. The same ID, like I'm the same person. It's the same ID I used when I last re-verified my ID. But I guess every 12 to 18 months, they probably, they go through these checks again. I hadn't done it. And as a result, the Android app got taken down, right? Not only did it get taken down, but everyone who was subscribed via Android had their subscription cancelled. Right? They just got an email to say your subscription has been cancelled, which, as you can imagine, was a bit of a kick in the teeth. And that only went live again. I want to say last Friday that we finally got the Android app back. And the annoying thing was, I had the second that I saw the app, I got the notification, or maybe someone had emailed me saying the app's disappeared. What's going on? Right? I can't log in. And then someone else emailed me saying my subscription has been cancelled. So then I'm like trying to get on it straight away. And I submitted all the paperwork which was required on the day. And then I was stuck in purgatory. It said it should be a couple of days. And I was stuck in purgatory for over a month. It was a month and a half. And I kept emailing them, asking them to kind of sort it out. And then they'd just reply with the same generic answer of, you need to do this. And it's stuff that I'd already done. And then eventually I just kept on and on and on at them until eventually they sorted it without me needing to re-upload any new documents because I'd already uploaded it. They were just like, it looks like you haven't verified your phone number, but it wouldn't let me verify my phone number because they hadn't okayed my documents that I'd updated. Anyway, too much information. Fact is, we lost all those subscribers, and then obviously we still managed to reach a peak of subscribers for that show, which obviously we're still riding now because we're still within that month. And I actually believe if you're subscribed before the show, you'll actually get the anniversary shows included in that month's subscription as well. So it really is a great deal. But yeah, I feel like we will probably peak even further for the anniversary shows. And and I look forward to continued growth. I think the key is as well, but whenever we have those situations whereby we do the big show and we peak, yes, we lose subscribers after that, but we retain more than we had before that. So it's one of those trends we see all the time. But also when I look at our subscribers far surpass the subscribers we had, even when we were hot, and I feel like I feel we're hot now, don't get me wrong, right? But when I say when we were hot, I could put a show on sale for your call without announcing anything, and I'd sell 500 tickets, boom, like that. That's when Progress was selling out the ballroom like that. That was a real boom for British wrestling. And of course, there's not that same demand now as there was then, although we are doing just as impressive numbers. It just takes a lot more work to get to those numbers. It's not as instant, But our on-demand subscribers far surpass that. And look, we can obviously say we've got better production now. We could say we're putting on more shows now, so it represents more value for money. We could say we've got bigger stars now as well. There's all these different reasons. And you could also say that perhaps it's because we're all more used to having to subscribe to these subscription services. But I would argue in the other direction and say there's so many subscription services now, and there's so many people fighting in that space, that it's almost a lot harder to get people to subscribe as well. So I'm very happy with the numbers. I think they're good, and especially per independent professional wrestling standards. And I can only foresee it continuing to grow, and stuff like obviously all the shoulder content that we're adding, on our YouTube channel, through our social media channels, pushing people onto the on-demand. That's also going to help as well, because I genuinely believe we present a very compelling product, and I think you're getting to see it more in that, the final version of the product that goes out, it's tied together a lot neater than obviously the live version. But that's the next step in the progression of the live streams. But as we said, time and time again with the live streams, like we could charge extra for, especially like shows like Summer Sizzler or Global Wars or the Anniversary. For shows like that with titles, high stakes, uprising, etc., we could be charging a pay-per-view fee for it on top of the standard service where you get all your other shows. But my big thing is, look, we're still working this stuff out, and we should be looking at the live streams as a bonus. And we should just know that within 48 hours, you'll get the high quality stream. And it's really been within 24 hours recently that we've had the high quality stream of the events going up. And those are much more neatly tied together, as well as obviously being better quality. I feel that, like I say, the next step is obviously to get those the actual live streams tighter. But obviously, we've spoken earlier about spinning plates. We've spoken earlier about business critical things and doing things one step at a time. And that's very much the mindset we have. So at the moment, I feel like it's important to grow the content, our social media presence, our stuff outside of, that on-demand service, and continue to up our game in the quality of that. And then once we've done that, then it's time to then look at where else can we improve. And obviously I've identified straight away, those live streams could be a lot tighter.
Last weekend we also saw the final show at the 229 in London, which was, like you mentioned before, the main venue in London since the pandemic. And we saw many stories unfolding in the road to the anniversary show, which is just 2 weeks from now, more or less. So, and we also saw that many of the key players from the RevPro shows in recent years participated in this last show. So what were your feelings after this final show in this venue? And what are your expectations for the new venue for Live in London?
So look, the reality of the situation is that my feelings at the end of the show was it's just business as usual. I feel like, when I was younger, stuff like that, they'd be overwhelmed. But I've spoken many times, I don't know with yourself, I've spoken many times in the past about the thought process about running events and of the caliber we run. And I said, like, when I used to run my shows in Sittingbourne, which, used to be the key shows in the British wrestling calendar. It might be 150, 200 people from the Wyvern Hall in Sittingbourne, Kent. And I used to run those shows, and the amount of, obviously I put the same love, care and attention as I do into everything. But the amount of energy, I don't think I can understate the amount of energy it takes to run a professional wrestling show, and to kind of put as much care into it as we do. But like those shows, I'd be wiped out for a week afterwards, literally a week, just physically, mentally spent for a week after those shows. Then it'd be on to the next one, and the next one would be in 2 months' time or 6 weeks' time or whatever it was, till eventually we got them monthly. That was the way I used to handle things. And then what happened was then I ran York Hall, and then York Hall I was wiped out for a week afterwards. But then the Sittingbourne shows became just another day at the office, so to speak. We just ran the shows, and I was able to, it was weird, like I was just almost overnight, once we started running York Halls and I'd gained a bit about perspective about, what hell was, I was able to then, turn around and kind of be like, right, I can just run this Sittingbourne show in isolation, not worry about it, not get stressed out about all the little things across the course of across the course of my life. As I always remember, so obviously at this time, I was when I was doing the Sittingbourne shows, I was dating my wife, and I used to remember when she used to organise like a night out for her and her friends, the amount of stress she'd go through organising a night out. And I was like, this is pretty much my job, but on a much, I don't want to say there was more on the line, because friendships are very important, and knowing where you're going next is very important, and organising everyone together is very important. But I always used to say, this is like pretty much my job. The stress that you're feeling right now is just my day-to-day life. And I was used to go, just don't worry about it. It's fine. It'll all figure itself out in the end. And that used to be my once we got into York Hall, that became almost my catchphrase. It will all figure itself out in the end. Right. And that mentality of you can only control the controllable, right? Don't get stressed out about stuff you can't control, right? And control what you can control to the best of your abilities, right? Yeah, then obviously I started running the York Hall shows. I'd be wiped out for a week after the York Hall shows. And then obviously I did the Copper Box. And like after a while, running the York Hall shows, that level of stress disappeared because I was so used to it. And then it became more patterned, because again, you just got to look at the number of shows we used to run in 2012 compared to the number of shows we run in 2025, right? In 2012, I don't know how, so it's probably starting 2013, because that was the first full year of RevPro. But in 2013, maybe you ran, 10 shows, right? In 2025, the total will be over 50, easily over 50 shows ran by the end of the year, right? So that puts it in perspective. So, I can't get into that headspace of, oh, we're going to be sad about 229. Oh, we're going to reflect. How will we respond from here? My thing was, and I said it in the RevPro recap, my thing was like, oh my God, we're going to Germany next weekend. And I booked 0 flights, right? So it's like a case of, we did the show and it's on to the next one, right? And we don't have time to sit down and reflect. And there will come a time when we sit back and reflect about what we've been doing and what we've achieved and how proud we are of everything. But right now, the important thing is to keep those plates spinning and keep the momentum going, because that's the thing that we have on our side right now, is momentum as we're going into that 13-year anniversary weekend. And I joke, it's like the summer of RevPro, but we've had shows literally every single, look, we had that week off for Revolution Rumble, and I think we've had 1 weekend off since I came back from holiday. But people aren't seeing, we have camp shows we're running. Obviously, we operate 2 training schools, so everything's just like boom, boom, boom. We go constantly, right? Yeah, it's just 100 miles an hour. So again, I can't get all sentimental and emotional, but what I will say is that the 229, it provided us a home after COVID. That's why I can never be angry. So of course I'm somewhat pissed off that we got 6 weeks notice to find a new venue, and I was on holiday when that happened. But I can never be angry at the 229, because they provided us a home coming back from COVID, when our regular venue was too nervous, scared to run shows there. In terms of we had to run at 50% capacity. It just wasn't financially viable to do. So I don't know what we would have done if it wasn't for the 229 stepping up in the big way we did. And I remember I said we run 48 shows there, I think I said. or maybe I said 49, but whatever it was, there was actually an extra one because I remember there was during the COVID days, there was one of the shows before one of York Hall shows when everyone got hit with COVID. I want to say including Will Ospreay, and it was in the lead up to one of the York Hall shows. So we weren't able to do the key angles that we wanted to do going into the anniversary, or not the anniversary, whatever the York Hall show was. I don't remember what it was, but we wound up running a York Hall show, a 229 show on 2 weeks' notice. And that was the type of venue they were. They were flexible. We could work with them, and everyone still came out. So those are the types of things I remember. I remember never taking it for granted. I remember the atmosphere, the different atmosphere that was provided to that of the London cockpit. And I remember, all those key moments, just the huge moments and all the great wrestlers who've wrestled between those four walls, So it was a crazy time. But it's time to move forward. And again, I use an analogy that I used with Dave Bradshaw the other day when I say I've recently taken up gardening. Well, I say I've taken up gardening. That sounds ridiculous. Well, it doesn't, but gardening's fine. It's great. I was always quite squeamish about gardening, the outdoors, dirt. As I grew a bit older, when I was younger, I used to, love playing in the dirt. But as I grew older, I was just like, ugh, why would I get my hands dirty, But my son's part of the gardening club, and we learn about all the different plants and flowers, and we plant stuff, we grow stuff, and, we learn about cuttings and whatever have you, right? And one of the key things about growing plants is that a plant's only going to get as big as its environment. So there comes a time when you have to repot it. You have to put it in a bigger pot. And that's the analogy I use to describe with RevPro. It's scary, yes. It's a much bigger financial risk, yes. It's a lot more work, yes. But it's putting us in that bigger pot. And if we go into that bigger pot, I say I'm not expecting miracles from day one. From day one, if I can just transport the same crowd that we've got across to the Porchester Hall, I'll be happy, right? I'll lose money, but I'll be happy because we've retained that and we've given ourselves a solid foundation, a solid base, right? And then it's about growing, watering that plant and growing from there. Now we've got that bigger pot. It enables us to grow so much bigger. And aesthetically, I believe the shows will maybe not, we'll see how the first one looks. Obviously, again, it's trial and error, right? In my mind, from the first show would be grand, but aesthetically, the shows are going to look a lot better as well, right? It's, so the best way I can kind of term it, it's almost like the floor of York Hall without the balcony, right? It'd be similar to that. And it's very suited to professional wrestling. It's a beautiful looking building. And obviously we'll figure it out as time goes on, but it enables us the opportunity for growth. And it's a step that I probably wouldn't have made had I not been comfortable, because right now I'm very comfortable. I was very comfortable in the 229. But now we're taking ourselves out of our comfort zone. We're taking another risk. And look, what could I do? In this situation, I could sit there and I could be sad for myself and I could be like, well, that's the end of monthly wrestling in London. Or I could get up and I could make something happen. And that's the RevPro philosophy. We make stuff happen. It's not about can't, it's not about won't, it's about can and will. And that's exactly how we've approached this. And that's exactly where we find ourselves.
The work never stops in RevPro, and now in a few days you will be going to Germany as RevPro returns to work with GWF. We are having another weekend there with Double Impact. It's the second year in a row. I had the opportunity to be live last year. It was a very fun show, many unique matches. Also this year we have some unique matches, and provides the RevPro fans the opportunity to see talent that usually competes in GWF, and also GWF fans to see talent from RevPro. What was the process like working with GWF to put together this show?
Interesting, I guess. I feel like it's tough because I like the final cards. I like what we've got. We didn't have any but this I feel this year's was a lot more individual than last year's, in the sense of it's very much there's 3 GWF matches, 3 RevPro matches, and then some RevPro, I think maybe 2 RevPro's GWF combined matches. I feel like I preferred the process last year in terms of where it was much more RevPro GWF across the card, but I am interested and excited to see the GWF talent and to see what they have, in their own environment, in their own comfort zone, so to speak. So I'm excited in that respect, and I'm very excited about the shows. And I think the shows are going to be great. I feel like I say, I just feel like collaboration-wise, it was a lot more their stuff, my stuff, then a little bit of crossover in the middle. And I think personally, I would have liked there to be more crossover across everything. But again, that's one of those things, that's a personal preference. And we'll see how, the shows fare compared to last year's shows. And I guess from that point, you have that period of reflection where you say, well, next year when we do this, let's do X, Y, and Z differently, and that's what this is all about. We learn as we go on. Look, it might turn out that it's the best thing for it, and I might just feel left out from, I like to, I don't want to say I'm a control freak, but I like to make sure that there's my fingerprints on everything across the shows without micromanaging stuff, because anyone will tell you, like, I'm probably, as far as promoters go and bookers go, I give so much creative freedom to talent, and I only give certain bullet points, and then I let talent sink or swim based around their own ideas and their own creative, unless something is asked of me. But yeah, I feel like it's certainly different this time, but I think I'm just as excited. In fact, I'm super excited. I'm super pumped. And as we're getting closer, I think like it's one of those things whereby, the more shows you do, it's like you have to get one out the way before you get excited about the next. Because we've got so much exciting stuff coming up. After that, the following week we're live in Southampton, and then it's straight into the anniversary weekend, I hope we've got a week off in the middle, but I don't think we do. Do we have a week off? I don't think we do. I think we just go straight from Southampton into the anniversary, and then we've got a week off, and then the following week we're into Porchester Hall for our first show at Porchester Hall. So there's your example of, it never stopping. And then obviously we're looking ahead to we've got Fantastic Mania UK coming up. Obviously we've then got another show in Doncaster coming up. We've got another show in Stevenage coming up. We got to put in something else in York Hall before the end of the year. We got so many exciting things still to come, and of course we're going to France as well. There's no time to breathe. There's no time to reflect, for me anyway, and there's not a lot of time to get excited, because it's almost like deal with a task at hand, and move like that. But as we've got this past weekend out the way, all my attention right now is turned to Germany. All my attention is turned to Berlin. And I'm super excited for 2 great shows, and to meet the great fans of Berlin and in Germany as well.
Now feels like the perfect time to start talking about the anniversary show. This year, RevPro celebrates 13 years, and we have 2 days of action at Crystal Palace. Under 24 hours ago, RevPro announced that the first night will be Global Wars, which is another iconic event. Last year was in October. We will be seeing talent from New Japan, CMLL, and Ring of Honor. I believe it's that holding this event during the Forbidden Door week is a wise decision, because you will have talent from different promotions available that can participate in RevPro. So how was the process of putting together this show? We don't know the cards yet. What do you think you learned from last year?
From last year Global Wars way, or in general anniversary weekend?
No, in this case, just about Global Wars, because that time was in March during the Royal Quest weekend. So
yes. So well, look. So there's a few things to this. So last year, Global Wars was always going to be on that date. booked for that date. It just so happened that New Japan emailed me specifically about that weekend and doing the Royal Quest during that weekend. So I'd said to them, well, I've already got Doncaster Dome booked. Like, if we can't find another venue for you, like, you know, we originally tried to do the Saturday, Sunday in Doncaster Dome, because I think that would have been obviously preferential for traveling fans. And I said but it was unavailable. And I said, like, obviously, look, we'll try and find you another venue, because it was only maybe a few weeks prior to the anniversary show that I think that the decision was made to run that Royal Quest. So we didn't have a lot of lead time, and it was a specific dates they wanted, because obviously there was a hole in the schedule. So with that in mind, like, I was like, well, look, you guys can have my Doncaster Dome date if I can't find you another venue for that weekend. But I wanted to keep Doncaster Dome, and I was very sure that I wanted it to be a RevPro date, not the New Japan date, because in my mind, like, short term, obviously running the New Japan show there would have been better off for me, but long term, I was in terms of it would have been more of a sure win, right? But long term, I was thinking, you know, look, we want to use this venue, we want to use the Doncaster Dome as a RevPro venue, and I need to start putting credit behind the RevPro brand, so to speak, and I need to stop feeling like second place to other promotions, and you know, I need to take us as seriously as I would want everyone else to take us. So that's why my mentality was, if we do Doncaster Dome, let's try and keep RevPro in Doncaster Dome. But obviously, you know, Royal Quest is an exceptional event. I want to bring it to the UK. I want to make sure. So if we couldn't find anywhere, we would have just put it in the Doncaster Dome. But fortunately, we were able to get Crystal Palace on that date, which is funny because Crystal Palace were unavailable on the Saturday, but available on the Sunday. So it kind of all worked out in a roundabout way. So that's how that all came to be. Right? Did it work out nicely that there were talent already in the country, or would be for the New Japan show? Yes, it did. It meant that obviously it wasn't a case of like, oh, it's a freebie now. It was a case of all the talent got paid, and obviously we split. Obviously, some of the flights, any of the talent we used, we split the flights with against the Royal Quest show. So that's kind of how that worked. And then from that point, it was just a case of, when you look at it, we didn't use a ton of New Japan talent. We used a good number of New Japan talent, but we'd actually booked the CMLL talent independently, and then had said to New Japan, would you be interested in working, you know, and using the CMLL guys on Royal Quest as well? And obviously there was Titan, who's a part of, or was at the time part of LIJ as well. So we kind of all tied in nicely. And it just, maybe the wrestling gods were smiling on us. We were just able to make it all make sense and all work out. And then regarding the anniversary shows, the way Global Wars came about for the anniversary shows this year, again, for me, I'd had in my mind Global Wars was we were going to do Global Wars UK again this year. It was going to be later on in the year. Now, the way it came about for this one, it was actually Tony Khan's idea. So someone reached out to me and said, Tony's got an idea to, you know, do you want to do something with Ring of Honor during that anniversary weekend? And then Tony was actually at the British J Cup show. And I don't think it's public knowledge, but Tony was there at the British J Cup in Stevenage. And we discussed the idea then about branding it Global Wars. And originally I was saying, like, oh, I think maybe we should call it War of the Worlds, thinking maybe we retain Global Wars for later in the year, because War of the Worlds was the name that Ring of Honor used when they came to the UK and did the CMLL, RevPro, Ring of Honor, New Japan joint shows. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know, Tony's right, we should do Global Wars UK, because it's a name which is synonymous with RevPro, and it's so responsible for so many of our dream matches. So that's where Global Wars UK, the Global Wars UK name came from. But I've had in my head that we were going to go with more of a, should we say, like almost like a RevPro versus the world theme anyway, for that show. And now the reason was, so I've toed and froed about this for some time, right? And originally when we were going across the two nights, I was like, we will do, for example, like WWE do at WrestleMania, and we will split the matches across, you know, across two nights, you know, split the big matches. You might have a women's championship match on one night, men's championship match on the other night. You might have, you know, whatever, you know, we'd essentially put together the sum total card and then split the matches in equality across the 2 nights. But the more I thought about it, and the more I thought about the reality of the situation, and remember what I told you about the tag league and how if you add a tag league, then all of a sudden it takes spots on the show, and if you put focus in a specific thing, it takes spots on the show. And my thing was, if we're going to do 2 nights and we're going to put the matches across 2 nights, we need big focus on all the matches across the 2 nights. And that is going to take a lot of work in terms of, because we don't want one night to seem less than the other. I think the inclination is always to have night 2 be the big night and night 1 be the build night, or, you'd have the, like, for example, SummerSlam just passed, right? You had your 2 championship matches, Gunther and CM Punk, and Cody and John Cena. And I think we all knew that the Cody-John Cena match was the big match of the weekend, which is why it was reserved for the second show. And I don't want that mentality for my shows. And also, I just felt like we'd have to put a huge degree of focus on all the stories for each night, which I think it makes it a lot harder. So I wanted to put focus on the stories from one night, and then how can we make the first night different? And that's by building dream matches, going back to RevPro being a dream factory, going back to everyone saying RevPro only produces dream matches, etc., etc. But I thought that would be a wonderful nod to Revolution Pro Wrestling in years gone by, because that's what we're synonymous with, so many of those huge matches. And now the fact that then AEW and Tony Khan and Ring of Honor had this idea and wanted to collaborate with us. And we spoke earlier in this interview about just how great it is that Tony wants to work with independent wrestling promotions, that Tony's all about the growth of the independent wrestling scene. And here we are, we're in this situation where all of a sudden we've got everything, it's all falling into place, and it's going to be great, and it's going to mean that we get those dream matches, and it's going to mean we get those storyline driven matches, and it's going to be the best of both worlds for professional wrestling fans, and it's going to be what this weekend was always designed to be, and that's about a celebration of professional wrestling. And when I talk about this weekend's designed to be, it's not just us running shows. There's other independent wrestling shows going on. There's and obviously the big firework display at the end of it is Forbidden Door at the O2 Arena, and obviously next year it's going to be Wembley Stadium again, and it's great. And I just want to turn the UK into a destination venue on that bank holiday weekend, and I just think it's almost like I say, it's written in the stars moments. It's the weekend that Revolution Pro Wrestling was actually born, was actually created. So it means so much, and that's why Global Wars UK means so much, and that's why we're able to create 2 very different shows, equally as important, with equally as much focus going into it. So I'm super excited.
Thank you for sharing that. It's actually very interesting and a testament of how Tony Khan wants to really help the industry to grow. Just not focusing on what he does. Of course, AEW and Ring of Honor are his priority because are his promotions, but he understands that you cannot. There's a limit to what you can do alone, and you will need to collaborate with others. So that's very cool. And the thing here is now the announcement was just made yesterday, and we are around 2 weeks to the anniversary show, but we haven't seen cards yet. And RevPro works, never stops. You will be in the weekend in Germany and then Southampton. So when can we expect to see some announcement regarding Global Wars?
The first announcement probably maybe even by the time by the time this goes live, maybe. So look, we're not shying away from this. It's not something whereby the day before we're going to boom, here's the card. You're going to have time to get excited about what's to come. But obviously there's a process around everything, right? And obviously, when you're dealing with many international partners, that process is it can be a bit longer than other processes. But we've been working on this. We've been working on the way I term this is we've been working on the bones of this card for a long while. I think that, and when I say the bones, I don't mean that in a negative way. It's almost like the spine of this card we've been working on for a long while. So regardless of, whether we were going to have the collaboration with, Ring of Honor, New Japan, CMLL, we've been working on the bones of this card with international talents. So we're in a very good situation right now. Like I say, I'm super excited to see where this can lead. So that's it. Look, we're not going in to run Global Wars UK without it being can't miss, I think it was you yourself that posted on Twitter the card we put on last year. Look at the cards throughout the years for Global Wars UK and understand we will be delivering August 22nd at the Crystal Palace National Sports Centre.
Okay, looking forward to that. And now the second night is more focused on RevPro, let's say. And so far we have 3 matches announced. There are 3 encounters where we can see former undisputed British champions, heavyweight champions, facing upcoming younger talents. But also in maybe the main event, we will see Shazamos in a title versus career against Ricky Knight Jr., who is also from the younger generation, but he has been active since he was a teenager. So it's a very fascinating scenario. We have Michael Oku versus Leon Slater. They will revisit a rematch from their earlier match, which was a banger. We have Zack Sabre Jr., New Japan's IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, against Sosaya, which is another dream match because Sosaya himself named Zack Sabre as his dream match. So how was the process of putting together this card?
So for me, look, the hardest thing for me is when putting together the card is knowing the standards that we set ourselves and knowing the standards that we set ourselves with previous year's anniversary shows and always wanting to top it. So that's a big challenge, right? But at the same time as wanting to, you've got to resist, and you've got to resist the temptation to make it dream match, dream match, dream match, dream match. Right, we're just very fortunate to be in a situation whereby we can put on a Michael Oku and Leon Slater. And not only is it a dream match, but it's also story driven as well, right? So we have to get that balance right, and that's always something that we work on. The next thing is to try and make sure we kind of give every match enough time without putting too much on the cards, with also understanding that we want to get as many of our guys on the cards as possible, because it's just it's that celebration of all things Revolution Pro Wrestling, and it seems harsh that some people miss out on that celebration after working hard for us all year long. So those are the key balancing acts. But look, honestly, and I know this seems like an advert, but it's not. But when you've got a roster as talented as I've got, there's many combinations of matches that I could put together that would be equally as exciting. But look, Zazaya versus Zack Sabre Jr., it's a no-brainer. Do you know what I mean? Like obviously, look, Zazaya's not going to be familiar with everyone, but for anyone who knows his work and knows his art and knows his passion, knows that him versus Zack Sabre Jr. is a dream match by any stretch of the imagination. So I think that the biggest strength also makes it the hardest thing to put together, if that makes sense. So the fact that I've got such good, strong talent and so many different options, that's the hardest part about this situation. And I've got this whiteboard. I'm in my new office now, and I've got this whiteboard where I think that's helped the process a lot. But so many times I've scrubbed things out and written new things on. And some of my trainees probably think they know the cards because they've come in and I see them. They get, like, when we load the van up before we leave, I see them bogging out the whiteboard, trying to remember all the matches, but so many times I've had stuff written down and then I've scrubbed it out and written new things on, because it's a great creative process, but that's the toughest part, making those decisions on what sits there and what doesn't.
Hey, and after the anniversary show, RevPro returns to Barcelona for a weekend there of the Trios Grand Prix. Last year was the inaugural edition. It was a very exciting tournament in 2 days. You already mentioned it. Why did you decide to bring the tournament to Barcelona? But when can we expect some announcement regarding to the tournament?
Probably after the anniversary show. I know it's only leaves us a month out, but I imagine straight after the anniversary show, we'll start getting some announcements for that. It's like you telling me about this right now. It scares me because I'm like, oh my god, it's very close. And it's just amazing how quick time goes when you're keeping yourself busy. So yeah, I feel like probably just after the anniversary show, maybe a little bit sooner because I'm just looking at the time scale and I'm like, maybe we should get a few things out before then. We've still only got weekend tickets out, so I think probably in the next couple of days we'll have out the individual show tickets. Maybe we'll coincide that with some announcements.
That will be great. I'm sure that like last time, there are some fans that might think of going abroad for this show. So knowing at least something related to who might be in the card might encourage them to participate. So that's also a key aspect. And like you mentioned, the time is going so fast, and RevPro is doing so many shows during the month that it can get scarier on that sense. Because also in October, you have a big. It's not a weekender, but you have 2 shows in one day when CMLL returns for Fantastica Mania UK. And this is interesting because before, when you talk about the experience of the double impact experience this year compared to last year, you also had the opportunity to compare Fantastica Mania, how it was in 2023 when it was in Manchester. It was all 2 days, and last year it was 2 shows in one day, and you are repeating that same process.
The first year was one day as well, 2 shows in one day, both years.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so do you think that's the formula, the right formula to run this show with CMLL?
Look, for like it's not cheap to run Fantastica Mania shows, and I think like from the standpoint, and what you have to remember, so is that the guys are so busy that to come over for Fantastica Mania, they are missing so many shows in Mexico. It's kind of almost like we have to be able to make it work. We have to kind of be able to make it worth their while in terms of being able to work multiple dates, and obviously the longer, the less time they're here, the quicker it is for them to then be able to get back to Mexico and get back to work again, right? So. And especially when you're dealing with people like Mystico, who's obviously like the biggest draw in Mexico, and like just an argument for wrestler of the year this year in terms of MVP, draw of the year, wrestler of the year, however you want to look at it in terms of what he means to business in Mexico. So we're kind of we're bringing the biggest stars, and we're bringing new stars. We try to get a mix, but in terms of how the process has changed, I feel like it's getting easier. And like, I'm not going to lie, I'm just more familiar with the product now than I was then. And I've gone on record time and time again. I said it after or maybe leading into the first Fantastica Mania, but or maybe after the first Fantastica Mania actually, because that's when I really started to understand. And I said that I believe Lucha Libre is the next big thing in professional wrestling. I think that Lucha Libre style mixed with the Western style of pro wrestling is anyone who figures that out first is going to make a lot of money in this business, because I think it's going to be huge. And you see it with WWE and AAA, you see it with CMLL and AEW, and I just feel like when you can add the emotional connection to the spectacularness what is Lucha Libre, then you're onto something. And we're talking about the costumes, the moves, the characters, everything about it. And I understand it. I love it. I'm a huge fan of it. And having that greater understanding, and then thinking to myself about the possibilities. And look, you've seen how well, like for example, like Hechicero has fitted in with AEW. You see how well Mystico fits in with AEW when he's allowed to be a star. Me having that greater understanding helps make it a lot easier. But I also just want to shout out CMLL, because they have been dream partners, and they want to do everything they can to help grow the CMLL brand in the UK, and are so supportive. And I think it's a great partnership for us.
Then, actually, the following week, RevPro visits France for the first time to perform with Lyon Wrestling Association. So, how did that came about, and what are your expectations for this first time of RevPro in France?
So he they contacted me, and I think it was based around the work we did in Barcelona originally, and seeing our will. Oh, maybe it was after the GWF weekend, but basically seeing our willingness to work with European promotions, they reached out to myself, and basically said, would we do something similar in Lyon? And they presented it very well and got me excited, basically, because you need to understand, I just love professional wrestling. I'm not like, yeah, I just love professional wrestling. So any project that can get me excited about professional wrestling, get me excited about seeing new cultures and that new fans, like, because I think that's what stood out the most for me, especially in Barcelona, was just how different the fans were, but in Berlin as well, just so alive, so energetic, and it's and I love experiencing that, and I can't wait to experience the fans of France. And it just piques my interest and got me excited. You know, I was probably, once I saw their pitch and they actually presented it properly, I was probably more excited about the project than they were, and they were super excited. So that's kind of how it came about. And I've said time and time again, I'm willing to do good business with anyone who wants to do good business, right? This is not, it's not a territorial thing. It's not a, and again, my mindset is I just want wrestling to grow. I want independent wrestling to grow. So if I can pass any knowledge on to them whilst helping grow the RevPro brand, and I think like the more shows we do in Europe and the more we grow the brand, the more legitimacy that gives RevPro. So I feel it's a win-win. It's a win-win scenario. It's a win-win situation. And that's kind of how it came about. And again, like I say, like we're of the mindset of this is going to be a big show. We're presenting a huge. Look, we want to go into this show as we want championship matches. We want matches from all divisions. We want this to be a big show, and we want people to be excited about it. And that's exactly the way we're approaching it. And I think that it's going to be a treat for everyone.
We mentioned some of these visits, but also that RevPro has big partnerships with promotions worldwide known as CMLL, New Japan, AEW, Ring of Honor. So is there any interest on going to their countries where they are based, like Mexico, Japan, the US? For example, we've seen American indie promotions recently going to Japan, like GCW or DPW. So is there any interest? Let's go.
Yeah, well, look, if we were invited, then absolutely, I would love to. But obviously, it needs to be in collaboration with our partners in those territories, and we're always open for it. So absolutely, we would love to be able to do that. And I feel like I think prior to the pandemic, it's probably something that could have been more on the cards in Japan as well. But obviously, and I feel like, again, just the pandemic ruins a lot of things, basically. So I feel like, I can see stuff happening in the future for sure. But again, it's all down to our partners wanting to kind of get involved and wanting to do it, and then welcoming us in and showing us how each area works, how the laws to running shows in each area works, how the promotion works, providing us with the infrastructure, etc. But yeah, we always open to do that, and would love to do it. Would love to go anywhere. Like, I can't emphasize enough, just we would go anywhere, literally anywhere where we can do good business, and it makes sense to go, and then we can work with good people and meet good people as well.
thank you for your time, Andy. It's been a pleasure to have you again. We got to talk a lot about many topics. It's been a very busy year for RevPro so far, and we are just over half the year. There's still a lot of more interesting things going to happen in the second half. So, do you have any message for the fans watching this?
Just thank everyone for their support, really. Like, I genuinely appreciate it. We can't do this. But again, harping back to the pandemic, the pandemic taught us one thing, is that wrestling without fans is absolutely nothing. So I thank everyone for their passion. I thank everyone for supporting Revolution Pro Wrestling. I thank everyone for supporting independent professional wrestling, and all the wrestlers that compete for us, you know. I know earlier on I went off on a bit of a tangent, but I genuinely hope that it wasn't taken in the wrong way, because, you know, like I say, I welcome constructive criticism. I welcome opinion. I'd much rather you have an opinion than be indifferent to a product, because if you have an opinion, it means you care. So I have to pinch myself every day with some of the things we're accomplishing, some of the things we're achieving. So I just want to say thank you, and please keep supporting us. And I've made this promise before, I'll make it again. You know, we're just getting started. We're continuing to grow. We're continuing to evolve. And you can look back at me historically on any of these interviews that I've done, and you can call me up on anything and everything I've said. I genuinely believe, to the best of my abilities, I've achieved or tried to achieve, or learned lots of lessons in failing to achieve. So I feel like I've put my money where my mouth is on a regular and consistent basis for over 20 years now, and RevPro specifically for the past 13 years, and we're going to continue to do everything in our power to grow. So thank you.
Okay, friends, that was all for today. See you next time.